What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Well, today is the day. I have had it. I just can't deal with it anymore. I gotta finally do something about it. Yeah. So when I picked up this truck a few years ago, I noticed that the body overall was in really good condition. I mean, for being 40 some odd years old. The only real issues, one is there's a dent in the driver's side rocker right in the front of the door, just below the hinge. There you can see that dent in the rocker. The other issue is that there's a rust hole in the driver's front fender right in front of the door. So there you can see I pulled the fender off, and there's the rust hole that I'm talking about. So it is obviously through the outer layer, and it seems to be pretty rusted on the inner piece here. I won't know the extent of that until I get this thing cut open and start working on the repair. So that rust hole in the fender is what I'm going to be working on today. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm not a body guy, but we got to learn sometime. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just cutting away some of the outer skin and see just how bad it really is. Alright, so now I've got most of the rotted area cut out of the outer skin and what I found on the inner structure. Let me bring you in closer and I'll show you what's going on. So when it came to cutting out first the outer skin, I wanted to make sure that I didn't get into this factory edge here. I wanted to do as much as I could to maintain this edge. So I cut through just the outer layer. You can see here, I don't know how well it's going to show up. I'm into the good metal now. I think I got most of the severe rot cut out of the outer skin. I should be able to just go ahead and weld to this now after I clean it up. When it came to the inner structure, I kind of did the same thing. I didn't want to cut the whole inner structure out. I wanted to maintain the factory stamping and just cut out the rotted area, which fortunately was in this recessed area. Here you can see there's kind of this kind of dips down and in. Same thing over here, it kind of came down. So most of the rot was in this area here. So I was able to cut out most of that and maintain the factory stamping. I still have some more to cut out here in the corner here and just a little bit up here where it's just the outer skin is really rusted to the inner structure, so I got to take some time and clean that up some more. But I'm going to start working on just this piece of the inner structure. So I've got some, I think this is 22 gauge I had laying around from some other projects. I'm going to use this to create the patch for the inner structure. So I made a template out of some chipboard, and I just kind of laid this in from the back, pressed it up into all the curves, traced it out, and I've got a template. So I'm going to transfer the template over to the 22 gauge steel, cut that out, and start kind of tacking that in place. once I got the inner structure piece cut and welded in place, I gave the old metal a coat of some rust converter, and then I sprayed everything with some Rust-Oleum paint and primer mix, just to give this side some protection. Since it's going to be between the sheet metal and getting in here later to try to paint this, I figured I would just do it now. Now I'm ready to go ahead and start laying in the patch. Now, when I started this, I didn't know how far the rot had actually kind of spread from what was visible. So I went ahead and I ordered a patch panel from LMC Truck. Now this covers, you know, the whole lower section there. And for, I think it was like 15 bucks, buying this versus not knowing how much rot was gonna be here and then having to shape it, that was worth the cost. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the patch panel and just cut out what I need and get it welded in place. A little bit of advice.
Always, never forget to check your references.
Make sure your camera is actually recording when you're trying to show something. That happened. Well, here you can see I've got a majority of the panel welded in. Obviously I still have some more to do, but let me set up a little demonstration. That way it'll be maybe a little easier to see just how to do something like this. So for demonstration purposes, I took a piece of that same patch panel that I'm welding into the fender, cut a piece out of it, and then I cut a slit in it. And that's what I'm gonna be welding up. So the patch panel, and same with the sheet metal on the truck, is 20 gauge sheet metal. So in my welder, I have 023 welding wire, and I'll be using that to weld this up. Now the trick here is you don't want to put a whole lot of heat into the panel. One, because you can warp it. Second, with it being such thin sheet metal, it's easy to blow right through it. So it's just going to be a series of quick tacks. So I'm going to add a few tacks just to hold it together, and then I'll work on welding the whole thing up. And after some tack welding and grinding, and some more tack welding and patience, there is the mostly finished product. Now obviously it's not perfect. There's still a few spots where you can see, especially here near the edge, and I didn't weld this part up here. Now, I'm not sure how well it's going to show up on camera yet, but in the beginning, you can see I had a couple of spots where I pretty much blew right through it. And that's because I had the welder set too high. This little Lincoln only has like 4 temperature settings, and I was just a little too high, so it burned right through real easy. I turned it down, and things went a lot better. Would you look at that? Just look at it, check it out. After a bunch of little tack welds, a bunch of sanding, and admittedly, a little bit of body filler, which I've never used body filler before. So this was the first. I am really happy with the way that turned out. I mean, is it perfect? Well, no. I mean, it is a hot rod shop truck, so it doesn't need to be perfect. But it is a hell of a lot better than that last repair that I did, and that's kind of the point, isn't it? I mean, as long as you're improving with each project that you do, that's kind of the point. You get a little bit better and a little bit better. Nobody starts at being able to do this type of work perfectly. And that's kind of the point of why I am doing this channel, why I started this channel, was to show that you don't have to do this stuff perfectly. You don't have to know everything and be able to do it all. But give it a try. Get out there and try it. So my goal for this repair was to really concentrate on the sheet metal work. I really wanted to get the welds dialed in. I wanted to get the sanding done, you know, as cleanly as possible and not have to use the body filler. I didn't quite get there. Almost. I ended up using the body filler just to fill in a couple of little imperfections, a couple of little pinholes, and a couple of spots that just wouldn't sand really smooth. You could still see a bit of an outline between the weld and the base sheet metal. There were just a few spots like that. So I did use, you know, I picked up a small container of Bondo from my local auto parts store, and I used that just to fill in some of those perfections. Overall, I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Once I got all the sheet metal work done, I got the Bondo done, and I think where I may have messed up with the body filler, I think I added a little too much hardener. It set up really quick, so it made the body filler work. There were a few spots where it just didn't sit real well. Like it didn't fill in smoothly. I couldn't smooth it out too much before I sanded it. So that created a couple of issues. But overall, it turned out really nice. Once I got all that done, I did just use some spray can Duplicolor automotive primer. So there's a couple of imperfections with the primer, but again, it's a hot rod shop truck. I'm not that worried about it. Overall, it turned out a hell of a lot better than my last repair. And like I said, that's the goal, to make little improvements with every project that we do. Nobody starts at perfection. And that's kind of, like I said, the point of this channel, is to show that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know how to do everything, but try. Give it a shot, learn something new. So hopefully you guys can appreciate that. Hopefully you learned something. Hit that subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll catch you on the next one.